Welcome back, Jon Scondotto, to Red River Podcast. We are a few years removed from the episode that we did. You know, the saga. It's basically like when you would get like VHS tapes of like The Godfather or Once Upon a Time in America. It would come with like 3 VHS tapes because it was so long. So
Right.
that was basically the episode. I was just. I
It's a
think we
director's cut.
I think we
It's a
had like
director's cut.
6 hours of talking.
Really? No, we don't. I think it was like three, and we had like,
Uh
but
yeah.
it was on, it was a free flowing conversation. A lot's happened since then. So we're
You,
gonna keep it, we're gonna lock it down in like a 60, 70 minute
yeah, for sure.
normal podcast. Normal
And,
podcast.
and I think what happened was is like, we were still kind of like, maybe like peeking out the window post pandemic. It was
Oh,
probably
sure, yeah.
right. So we were just like
Yeah.
excited to talk to anyone. And in it, we were talking about, playing that show together. And but anyway, so like Jon, you're, anyone listening obviously know you from bands, also podcasts. I had the pleasure of playing with one of your with your later band, which is Synthetic 16. You guys did a reunion, and it was at the Coney Island Brewery. And
Mm.
so tell me how that felt, because we never got a chance to really break this down. But how did it feel to basically have that performance, knowing possibly it was going to be the last time you were ever going to play live music, and everything that happened after?
Yeah. So the only reason that show happened was probably because of our conversation.
Mm,
I don't know if you know that or not, but it is, I would say maybe 50 to 60% of that took place because that conversation opened up other conversations with other people, and then other people got involved. So there's two reasons why that show happened, which is going to be 3 years ago in the fall, if you could believe that. But isn't that wild? It's almost 3 years ago. But one is the conversation you and I had, and the other is my brother, and I'm going to be have to say their names every time because there's
yeah,
so many. My brother Mike. So there was, if it was no conversation with you and no Mike Scondotto, that never would have happened.
sure.
It just wouldn't have. It just never ever would have happened. So that's really where that came from. And COVID was still kind of a thing. If you remember, there was still a lot of restrictions in New York, in particular, in the state, and especially in the city. So that was a factor. I had put that together in my mind, and then I went from an idea in my head, and then I spoke to Mike about it, and I spoke to you about it, and then other people. And so looking back on it now, I have some trepidations about it, because I feel like I had this really good idea to do it, and I maybe discounted what it's like to be in a band, which you and I
Ah,
have talked about. No, you know what I mean?
oh yeah, yeah. Believe me,
Yeah,
we know, we know.
yeah. So for people that don't know, because this is not an experience everybody has, right? So, a band is it's a relationship. It's an intimate relationship,
Without
usually
sex.
without sex. Nobody's getting laid. And the payoff you're sharing like collectively, right? So, it really is a relationship. So, I had spent that summer rehearsing. I think I talked to you about that a little bit offline. Like, I was rehearsing. It's like, holy shit, I'm going to band practice. And full disclosure, that was a very difficult time in my family because my wife was a hospital nurse traveling for COVID. I lost my job to COVID. So the only thing I had to focus on was just running every day and getting ready for this show. So, in hindsight, I think so much emphasis was put on it from me personally because of the chaos of COVID, of I lost my job. I was unemployed, like for a very long time through almost most of the pandemic, and the pressure of that on myself. And I was scared I was going to fall apart, so I just kept exercising like a fucking lunatic, and that could be a dangerous thing too, especially someone in
Well,
my age
listen,
group.
there. I mean, yeah, you took it there. I wasn't going to take it there, but I'm thinking like of all things to really hone in on, there could be worse,
No,
things
there
to.
could be, yeah. I mean, and at this time, I was not really like, I wasn't really drinking. I certainly was not taking edibles the way I've sort of become accustomed to doing and stuff like that. But for me, I needed to exercise that demon. And as it got closer to the show, the band circumstance behind it and the relationship of that, which you're well aware of, and most people that have been in the band are well aware of, that started creeping in again. And it was just kind of like, I don't like this set list. Why are we doing this song here? We shouldn't play that. And I'm like, oh, fuck, man, like this is exactly what I didn't want to do. But the difference in this go around, Sam, unlike my whole fucking 30 years of doing this plus, was that I didn't draw a line in the sand and say, nope, we're doing this, or I'm not playing. Like none of that happened. I'm not, but when you bring all these personalities together, especially with a lot of baggage, it could be a bit much.
Yeah.
I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it for what it was. The aftermath of that, quite frankly, was not what I thought it would be.
Yeah, which is weird, because I don't know any part of this story. To me, like I watch you, and it was great even to meet Pete, right? The singer of
Pete Ross from 5 Cent Hero. Yeah.
Yeah, so we kind of stayed in touch too. He's playing with a whole bunch of bands too. So like that night
Yeah,
was
he's
like
great.
that night was probably different for me because I was like, oh, I got to like hang out with you and watch your band and all this other stuff, meet him. So here I am thinking like everything is great, and but I guess there was some sort of aftermath. So I guess fill me in on what happens.
Well, yeah. So the way the aftermath kind of went down was there were a lot of people who couldn't be there. And unfortunately, I hate to keep beating this horse, but part of the reason was COVID. I personally, I'm sure as you know too, I know a lot of people that refuse to get vaccinated.
Yeah.
For whatever reason. And the reasons are their own, and I'm certainly not here to litigate that, and I never would anyway. People couldn't make it. There were people that, traveled for it. People flew here to play. And the tone of people who were there was, you need to do this again. Like when this cloud isn't, hanging over us. So I thought that would be a good idea. So
Yeah.
you probably don't know this. My brother Mike knows this.
But we did talk.
Yeah.
I did have that temperature gauge because maybe even Mike mentioned it too, where like maybe the following year there would be one more.
Summer.
So yeah.
So so the idea I had, and I honestly don't know if you know this or not, but my brother Mike knew it, was I said, I have an idea. Tell me what you think. Because I bounced all this off of him because unlike anybody else in my family or a lot of my close friends, with the exception of maybe you, Mike is consistent. Like you guys are consistent. You're consistently playing. You're consistently doing things. You're consistently going to shows. You're consistently talking about music.
Yeah.
So all of that, I went to him immediately. And I also knew from my brother Mike's perspective that his only agenda was that he wanted this for me. So that's why I entrusted this to him. So I said to Mike, I said, listen, this was probably in the winter. And I said, I have an idea. I was like, now that COVID's kind of gone, what if we redo that show, same bands play, but we do it on a Saturday, like outside. I set up with Farley. There's no restrictions. Anybody can go. We'll have it outside, nice weather, because that fucking poured that night. It was beautiful all day, and then it poured. Yeah, the day before was stunning. It was like one of these most beautiful days in New York. And I'm in a studio all day rehearsing like a fucking idiot.
Yeah.
So Mike goes, absolutely. Like he was like, yeah, great idea. Great idea. I go, now obviously that would be the last time that we play, but I still felt like there was some high vibes. Like after that, like people were excited that playing. And then unbeknownst to me, I had the video from the show. They shot the video from the show and I put it on YouTube, which I've never done in my life.
Okay.
I never in my life have I put anything on YouTube. And I made a channel, I put it on YouTube.
Congratulations.
Well, don't congratulate me just yet. So and also for people that don't know, I have a super but a super loyal group of people that do not know me from music, from anything. They know me as John Draper.
Yeah.
They would just be excited to see the video. They wanted to come. Some people came to the show that were like the band, like the podcast, from Wrestling Soup to Break the Apocalypse, which is now Spitball Media, which we'll talk about. But so Mike was like, I think it's a great idea. So I was like, okay. But prior to that, I put the video out on a YouTube channel. And I'm in a group chat with everybody. And I said, hey, I uploaded the video. And the audio wasn't that great, but it was just, I mean, it is what it is, right? It's footage.
Yeah, like anything. Like even with us, like I heard You know, like any clips and someone took, I'm like, oh, we played that too fast or something, you know, like
Yeah,
whatever.
somebody's, maybe it's not the best or whatever.
Yeah.
So, but we put it up there, and it's a fun video. I mean, you were there. The people had a fun time. Everybody was whooping it up. It was
Yeah.
fun. It was jokey, whatever. It was very low key. I'm climbing on shit. Like, what would be a problem with doing that, right? And then, like, immediately, the backlash from the people in the band came. Like, how could you do, like, making fun of me, or like whatever? Like, this is terrible. Oh my god, this should be destroyed. And I'm just like, what the fuck? The fuck is this? Right. And
Okay.
then one of them said, you're going to take it down, right? Like, very seriously. And I was just like, holy shit. Like, what the fuck? Like, who cares? Like, it's not, you know what I mean? Like, who cares? Like, it is what it is. And I took it down, and I had a chip on my shoulder about taking it down, and I deleted it. Don't even know if I have it. And then when the conversations about this started up again, one of the guys said something to the effect of, a couple of people were already on board, like, yeah, this sounds like a good idea. I like this idea better, blah, blah, blah. And then one of them, which I'm not here to throw people under a bus, I'm just going to be honest, said, well, when you said this was your last show, in my opinion, this was the last time I was ever going to play with you too. Okay. So in my mind, I'm like, well, then that's one less person that's going to play. Somebody else will take that person's place. The way bands work, right?
Sure.
Like, I would ask Pete Ross. I could ask like anybody, right? Not gonna ask anybody, but So and then the temperature just completely cooled, and that was that. And I was just like, wow, what a sad, odd little way to ruin something that so many people told me they enjoyed. Like, and that I thought we all enjoyed. I enjoyed being with them. I had such a good time being with them, and it was very low key and funny, and we were like making fun of each other
It
immediately.
it was a
Just
great
really sad.
Yeah, it was an awesome night, you know, for me to like basically obviously hear you guys in recordings first and then watch it. I think you were great. I think you sounded great. Like
Oh, thank
absolutely.
you.
I loved everything about it.
They don't think so.
Uh
They don't think
yeah,
so.
so that's maybe the thing is like it's so much easier to enjoy other people's sets than it is
Mm.
your own once you start really breaking it down. But at the end of the day, it's a reunion of a band that existed so long ago, and to have total fun that you can't really like just sit there and like pick apart things and like suck the fun out of everything, because it's just like, okay, so like this is what it is. Like, all right, a YouTube
Mm.
video. Maybe I don't like how this came out or whatever, but like
Of
I was
course.
I was there, and I thought you fucking sounded great. I thought everyone
Oh,
sounded
thank
great. I
you.
thought the song
Yeah, I
sounded
thought
great.
everybody sounded great. I thought all the bands played well. Like, it was like, I don't know what was missing from this. And a part of me, and I, not to die on a cross, but a part of me, and I think my brother Mike, I said this to him and maybe my wife. I said, I feel like they saw that I was maybe liking it too much. Like, I don't know. Like, I can't see, like, what is the downside of playing songs you wrote with people 20 years ago twice in 20 years and keeping that a fun vibe? Like, what's the downside? And we worked hard for it. I thought everybody worked very hard. I was very happy with everybody's attitude about everything. I literally, and this is God's honest truth, Sam, right before we played, I went over to each one of them and kissed them on the cheek, almost like in a biblical way, because I felt like, well, I'm never doing this again. I've
Yeah.
never done a thing like that in my life,
Yeah, yeah,
you
yeah.
know. And my children are there. You met my wife and my children.
Well,
My
listen,
fucking
turning 50 does weird things to people, apparently.
It does. It does. I was 50, and I was very proud of that. Like, I
Yeah.
was proud. I was proud I could do this. I was proud I had this relationship with
Yeah, it's
people.
so great.
Yeah, I was proud that people traveled, and
Yeah.
people from the podcast, and Jerry Farley being such a wonderful guy, and all the bands being so warm about all of this. And it's just, I felt like, I don't know if it was just, it brought back a lot of memories of them, because normally, and I've admitted this to you, and I've admitted this, to a few people privately, music brings out the worst aspects of my personality. It brings out everything. It used to in my 20s and 30s, but I didn't do it in my 40s, and it's certainly not going to do that in my 50s. I can tell you that. So I don't know if it was just maybe they thought I sucked, which is definitely a possibility. I don't know that it is or it isn't, so I'm certainly not going to put words in somebody's mouth. But I told my brother Mike about this because he's like, as much as he's my younger brother in this world, he's my older brother.
Yeah.
Because he is in the trenches.
He's a lifer, man. I love Mike.
Yeah,
Mike
he's
is
the real thing.
he is. He really is. He's probably at a show right now somewhere.
Yeah, probably. He was listening to me, or he's listening to vinyl right now, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So he said to me, "It's not you."
Yeah.
Because he would have told me. He's not holding back words from my affection. I promise you that. He actually, when I did the podcast with you, he kind of privately told me he thought I was wrong in a lot of the things I was saying because his memory of the bands was that I was doing all these things and everybody else was just kind of like not, which is not really true. Everybody says that, but so that's how that kind of fell apart. And it's crazy because that night, I don't know if I told you this or not, but that night after the show, we went out. I was whooping it up like it was the last night on earth. And and I got carried out. I got carried out of a bar.
I heard
physically. Yeah, I got carried out. Yeah, and my wife had to put me in a car. And my older brother was there. You know, like almost every brother's crazy.
Joe, right?
Joe. Yeah, my brother Joe's there, and people loved it. Like, you know, the dudes from the podcast were there. It was incredible. And the next day, I'm sleeping at we had a house, but I stayed at my in-laws because I was too fucked up to go anywhere by myself. And I see my father-in-law, and my father-in-law is just beaming. And he was like, "That was so great.
Yeah.
That was so great. We've been talking about this all night." He called all the other family members and was like, "Boy, you really missed out. Like, you couldn't believe this." And then fast forward, that was October. November, I'm away with my in-laws in the Poconos. And as soon as I get out of the car, a couple of my brother-in-laws are waiting in the driveway, being like, "Dude, I saw clips of the show. Oh my God. Oh my God. I can't believe we weren't there." It was that's the vibe, right? Like, that's great. That's what you want. And of course it's your family, but people don't, family doesn't compliment you and you're middle aged the way they do. I'm not a child.
No, yeah.
My feelings wouldn't have been hurt, Sam, if none of that had happened.
Yeah.
So I carried that vibe around for a while, and then I tried to do the show with them again. And, because one person didn't want to do it, that didn't seem like a good enough reason to me to not do it. But I certainly was not going to have to. I don't want to pull teeth. What's the line from Sparta, the band Sparta? I want to be welcome, not just the Sparta song. Like, I want to be welcome, not just tolerated, or something like that. It's from a Sparta song. And I want to be welcome. I don't want to just be tolerated. I don't want to be somebody that you have to play music with that you really would prefer not to, but too many people like me, and it's kind of going to be a mess to do it with somebody else. So let's just do it with him. And then whatever, I don't want that.
It's not fun. So going through bands, or I shouldn't say bands, but eras of the band, for myself, anytime someone leaves, or to me, it's like, if you want to go, please go, because I never want to, I feel like we always lost a lead guitarist along the way, and for me, as soon as I feel like you want to go, I'm like, just go, because it's a cancer. And once you go to practice that way, it just brings the vibe down.
Oh my God.
And at this point, it's like, some people play golf on the weekends. Some people play cards on the weekends. We play music. That's what we do. Right. It's like,
yeah.
I never fell out of love with, still with writing music, with playing it, with looking at the puzzle of songwriting and being like, gee, I wonder what the right chord or the right melody for this, once that happens, it's amazing. So to have someone that's like, oh, well, I don't want to do it, or I don't want, it's go. I'll at the end of the day, I'll figure it out. Just leave immediately, because it's like, we're playing music. This isn't like
right.
we're doing anything but, so.
Well, let me flip this on you for a minute, because I'm very curious, because I look at your progress and your output, and it's staggering to me, right? Because you're constantly writing. No, it is, because I'm someone who I can't do that anymore. So it's sure. But it's like you're constantly playing. you're constantly writing,
Yeah.
you're constantly putting you're doing EPs, you're making videos. And I'm just wondering from your perspective, right? Do you need 4 or 5 other people to match that energy for you to accomplish that? Or can they kind of just be static and you're kind of like, okay, this is what we're doing. This is the idea I had. Let's work on this together. Because at the end of the day, somebody has to drive the boat, right?
Mm.
Somebody has to fucking fly the plane.
Yeah.
That's it. The plane is not flying itself, right? Do you find that you don't need people to match that energy and that level of output in order for you to get done what you need to get done?
Some bands, like you said, somebody needs to drive. There are very few Fugazis in the world where there's 4 of them, and they're a Voltron.
Hmm.
Voltrons are very hard to find. So
I'd say Pearl Jam is kind of that too. If you look at consistent, they've had the same lineup sans a drummer
oh
for
yeah,
30 years.
yeah. Jimmy Eat World, same thing. Like
Yeah,
these
same
they're just
people.
absolutely. For me, the one thing that I give myself above everything, because I know people who just sing. I know people who just play the bass or play guitar but don't sing. At the end of the day, everyone in the band could go away tomorrow, and I'm still going to be able to pick up my guitar, write a song, and perform it, whether it's by myself, live with the acoustic guitar, or do something in the studio. So to me, I take comfort in that knowing that no matter what, I could still play with the band, which I'm super lucky to still have, or by
Mm.
myself. As far as I need the guys to show up to practice once a week, like church, straight up.
Mm.
When someone asks us to do something on a Tuesday, it's like I can't. It's just
Oh wow.
that's
I
what it
remember those
is.
days, sure.
Yeah, like Tuesday is
I remember them.
practice, and that's it. And if you can't make Tuesday, then we'll switch it to Wednesday, Thursday, or whatever. So I have guys that show up. They contribute. Everything is split 5 ways financially. Anytime we need to record something, like everything, the mechanics of it are very split. So I need that. Everything else, as far as like social media, songwriting, and stuff like that, it's like, yeah, it's like, all right, I'll do everything because I love doing it.
Right.
So like as far as the songs go, like I write the black and white, and everyone colors it in. Is basically the way
Yeah,
it
and
is.
that's a great dynamic, and it's obviously fruitful for you, right? Because you're able to continue to produce. And look, I don't. It wasn't like I was like, I'm just going to get 4 other dudes and call it Synthetic 16. Like, I mean, I would never do that in 1,000 years, right?
Yeah.
Because I do want to play with them, right? I don't like, and me and my brother Mike, I got to keep bringing him up because he's just such an important part of the story in my life, Um, we've, and I'm sure you have too, there is no worse feeling when you're trying to create when you are being held hostage by another adult. An adult holding you hostage emotionally, psychologically, financially. It's the worst. The one guy in the band who keeps canceling or doesn't have money or who doesn't have a ride or who doesn't want this and he's always fucking up or something. And it's like, oh, I'm being held. But I really want to do this thing. But, Brad, I'll just make up Brad. Brad, I don't want to fuck Brad over, but Brad obviously isn't as into this as we are. Maybe we should sack Brad, and it never feels good to do that.
Yeah.
Nobody likes to do that.
No, it never does. And it's with anything, a relationship that you don't want to be in, or like just
Yeah.
anything. It's always easier, like to me, it's always easier for me to get cut than it is for me to cut anyone. I'm like,
Yeah,
yeah,
I would rather get cut. I would rather get cut.
yeah.
I really would.
I'll live with it. No big deal for me. But
Yeah.
yeah, it's playing music is the best thing ever. Being in a band is not the best thing ever. And that's really
Yeah,
what it is.
I had this conversation. And twice in the last few weeks, I got recognized for quote air quotes. Once as John Draper in a parking lot a couple of weeks ago in a fucking Price Chopper in upstate New York from a guy who's I think listened to me since like Wrestling Soup.
Yeah.
And I put myself out there. I want people to know the fuck I am because I learned that from doing that show. I traveled to do cons for that show. I did events for the Wrestling Soup. Like, if people are gonna make your show that successful, you should let them know who the fuck you are. They should know what you look like. They should know how you act like. They should know what you're, they should know, they should be able to fucking come out and talk to you. So this dude just approached me a couple weeks ago. I'm literally, hand to God, I'm literally in a Price Chopper fucking supermarket, and I'm pushing my groceries out into the supermarket. It's 5 o'clock on a Friday, and a guy, regular dude, getting out of a car, does a double take. Now I look like a lot of people. Like I could be Brian Posehn, I could be Bob Mould, I could be fucking whoever the fuck. Any bald, bearded, older guy with glasses now.
Those are two really good ones.
Right. Yeah, those are pretty good ones. Because I didn't realize how much I look like Bob Mould right now. So like, and he goes, "You're Don Draper, right?" And I'm like, "Yeah, what's up?" Like that. Like, oh, it's like, no, just so I go, "Oh, have I met you before?" Because I had met a couple of people at an independent wrestling thing up here years ago, and I just wasn't sure if I know the guy from it. And he goes, "No, never met you before. I just I like to listen to the show." I go, "Oh, from the Soup?" And he goes, "No, from Break the Apocalypse, so Spitball Media." But yeah, from the Soup too. I go, "Dude, oh, what's up, man? What's your name?" His name was Rich. I go, "I'm John." I go, "Hey man, send me a DM, bro." And that was it. And I was like, "That's the most random ass thing." I'm picking my car up a week later from the mechanic after getting an inspection, and I'm friendly with these guys. And they call me into the garage part of the thing. They go, "Where's Scondotto? Get him in here." And the owner of it is sitting in a chair smoking a cigar, and he's like, "I didn't know you were famous. You like a famous family or something?" And "What the fuck is? Am I dying? Like, what the fuck?"
Did he want Mark's autograph?
They reference me by my last name, like the way older guys do. It's like, "Oh, yeah. Scondotto's picking up his car at 3." And a younger mechanic guy, that's a very odd name. And he goes, "Wait a minute, Scondotto, like the Scondotto brothers?" And the guy was like, "John, I don't know." He goes, "Jon Scondotto's car?" And he was like, "Yeah." He was like, "Do you know who those guys are?" He was like, they're like really well known." And they go on the internet and they start writing all this shit down. Like, what's Break the Apocalypse? Who's Shut Down? Who's Mike? Who's Kevin? How many brothers do you fucking have? Like, and why does everybody know them? So I walked them through it. And these are like middle-aged men, like, and they're fascinated by this. And the guy who owns the place was like, "You've been coming here all this time, and I didn't know like you like had that kind of life. It's crazy." And I go, "Well, why the fuck would you? Like, I don't know. Like, I walk around."
Yeah. So, do you know who I am?
Yeah, like it's so goofy. but it's a weird thing, right? So it's like, wow, that's cool. That's not part of the fabric of my life that two people recognized me in upstate New York for whatever, but there's other people. The first thing they would do is like, "You're not going to believe what just happened to me in the supermarket." The only person I told was Mike, naturally. And then I told my wife, and my wife thought it was the funniest goddamn thing ever, because she thinks I'm, she knows me.
Yeah.
But it's an interesting thing.
Meeting your wife at the show was awesome.
Oh, she almost got thrown out.
Well, yeah, by the end of the night, she was definitely feeling no pain for sure. But I mean, she was just great. She was like so fucking nice to me, and
she's wonderful. Yeah, she thinks the world of you too, by the way. So, and my kids were there. I think you met my kids. It was just like, it's like, wow, what a nice experience to share with people that you really think are great and that you love. Wouldn't you want to do that again? Right? So
yeah.
Well, you don't want to do that again? Like, my kids were excited at the concept of doing that. We're going to bring more friends, and like more relatives will come in. Yeah. And my father-in-law was like, "Well, if you're doing that again, we're going to make a whole thing out of it."
You would think
I don't think anybody should miss this.
It's something me and Mike, your brother, obviously, it's like that's the feeling that we constantly go for, every time we play.
Yeah, but it's good. But you also you have a lot. But you have a lot more opportunities for that than I do. So it's like you've had more consistency with it and infinitely more success. So like for me, it's ho-hum, but what it really did was it made me kind of like, I dwell on it because I was like, well, if that's my last show, but I was like, you know what? I really don't want that to be the last time I play, because I don't want those vibes in that anymore. Like I'm okay with it if it is, because it was fun and I love everybody and I love these guys. I say this with no trepidation because I had decades of love on and off with these guys. But at the end of the day, collectively, whether it's because they don't like me personally or socially or think I suck, if I can't motivate 4 dudes to have that experience, because we're all having the same experience, right? Then obviously that's not worth it. Yeah. But I also didn't want that to be the last time I ever played, because my idea was everything's going to be great. Everyone's going to love it. we'll make a little video, maybe we'll get some downloads, and like none of this happens at all. I just put a pin in it and just I focused on a podcast and I got back to work and my kids are now both in college, so it's like, real life kind of has a way of wiping that slate clean. And I love those guys. I'm not throwing them under the bus. I just don't understand the reaction. I just don't think it was, if it's not personal, it feels personal.
Yeah. It's definitely like your brother said, not because you suck, because you see reunions and you're like, oh, okay, like that wasn't really great vocally. So it has to be something else that no one's aware of except for the dynamic of the band. Because it wasn't like I like everyone there, and it's, if we didn't think so or I didn't think so, I wouldn't even bring it up.
Exactly, because
the
deal.
Yeah, I'd be
hey, that was really fun. That was great. You guys were good. Anyway, let's talk about this, the Grammys, huh?
Oh, Grammys. How about that? Yeah. So, nothing is over. Nothing is over. That's it.
That's the other thing too. I at the time I spoke to you, I think I hadn't done Wrestling Soup. Like people just thought that was over for me. I just did it 2 weeks ago, and I'll probably do it again and I'll do it again. And I talked to,
so what do you guys talk about on that? Like, cause so, like my wrestling knowledge ends at 1990. So like,
I have to ask you about the Royal Rumble, Sam. What in God's name? I'm sorry. I have to do it. I can't not do it.
Shout out to our boy Christian McKnight, who.
Oh, I love Christian to death.
Yeah. So like,
he's a wonderful guy.
I had some loose plans and he's like, hey, we're watching the Rumble at my place. And I was like, nah. I was like, I got other plans. And then my friend who I was going to go to a show with, I was like, did Christian call you? And he's like, yeah. He's like, he invited me over and my girlfriend's like, just go. And I'm like, you know what? I'll go for the hang. And I told him, I was like, the last time I watched the Royal Rumble was like 1990 or 80. I don't remember.
Oh,
but I feel like King Harley race won or something. I could be completely.
Oh my God.
So I'm like mixing it up. But anyway, so like we went there. I had no idea that there was enough females for a female version of it.
They have 20. Yeah, they have 20 instead. They have a large female roster, but they have 20 instead of 30. That's how.
I didn't even notice. So I went there and hung out. Tom Sheehan was there too.
Oh, Tom was there.
Yeah.
Get the hell out of here.
Ron Grimaldi.
Dude.
Yeah. It was
like a fun night, man.
It was a fun hang, and So any questions? Go ahead, shoot.
It's funny because I had to watch it for the. Sure. I got to go in Soup because for wrestling podcasts, that's a signature show. So your audience boost is through the fucking roof. You know what I mean? Like I don't know Wrestling Soup's numbers, and I'm certainly not going to pretend that I do, but I can tell you that is a large audience. WrestleMania is a large audience. People who normally don't listen to a wrestling show are going to go after that show ends and go, let's see, what's podcasts are going? Oh, Wrestling Soup's live right now. Shit, let me hit the button there. And then they go in there. So I knew I had to do the show. So I had to watch it for the show. So it's different when you're watching it because you're going to have to talk about it like the way you would a film after you get out of it, right? And that's always been my approach.
We did a pool too. I forgot. Like we all picked.
Oh, that's fun.
We picked numbers. So that was another appeal of it. Like,
what do you think of let me ask you this, because I'm not going to talk about the matches necessarily, but what do you think of the presentation? Because I feel like the presentation, that was in a giant baseball stadium with 54,000 people.
It reminded me of WrestleMania 3.
Oh, Pontiac Silverdome.
Yeah. So like when they I guess they were being driven into the ring by like a mini ring.
So far, right? It's so far. That's how big it is.
That production,
good crowd, good production. What did you think of what did you think of just seeing it from a production standpoint? Like the way it's presented as a show, as a spectacle.
Yeah, that's an interesting question.
You can tell I do a wrestling podcast, right?
Yeah.
I used to for fucking. I don't do one anymore. Yeah.
Man, you're good.
The production value, if we take the production value in the audio, we talk about the audio, we talk about it all.
So yeah, I there's such a disconnect to me from like, I mean, it's just so hard to talk about it because it's like I remember Iron Mike Sharp. You know what I mean? Like I
Mm.
remember when I felt like it wasn't like this spectacle. I felt like it
Yeah.
was like kind of different and like it just seemed less cartoonish, I guess, to me, like,
Mm.
where I feel like everything is like it's like a movie or something like where I feel like the
Yeah.
older
Kind of like a movie.
wrestlers, yeah, where like the older wrestlers were just kind of like slobs and they
Oh
like
yeah. Some of
wrestle,
them were. Yeah.
like Big John Studd or like whatever. They weren't like, yeah, they were just like big people, but yeah, it's a thing for sure. And like
Mm.
for me, I guess at the end of the day, the natural progression for me was UFC. So once UFC
Mm.
started, I was like, okay, as a kid, I fucking loved wrestling. I loved it. I
Mm.
fucking loved it. And then once the UFC started, like 3 years after, I was like, oh shit, this guy's tooth just got kicked up in the air.
I,
So
yeah.
that was like where I kind of just like switched over. And then I went back to like I was working at a place called Symbol Technologies for a bit. And this was like when The Rock was like a big deal, right? Like 98
Oh wow.
maybe.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I remember everyone there talking about it because wrestling is so fucking huge, like huge. I
Yeah.
don't I don't tell you, obviously.
Yeah.
And
On
people
social media, it is. On social media, it's
but
enormous.
people were talking about like The Rock and all this other stuff. So I was like, oh, I'm missing out. And then my friends would watch that and I would listen to these promos and I'm like, oh, this is funny. Like they're
Yeah.
so funny. Stone Cold,
Oh, he's great. They were great.
The
They were fantastic.
Rock.
They were a good sign of the. They were a good sign of the times too, because we were still in that grunge, like heroin chic era. Like like we were kind of moving away from that, and then we were sort of becoming like as a country an energy drink, right? Where everything
Yeah.
was extreme. We had extreme sports, and now we have extreme video games, and now we have backyard wrestling and bum fights, and
Oh,
here is
wow.
this, but I'm saying like that's where we were at the end of the 90s and the attitude, what they call the attitude era. It was a reflection of the country in culture. People were cursing on television. Oh
Yeah.
my God. Porn was on blue. Porn was going all digital and street, and people started downloading porn like on the internet, and like sex tapes were coming out of Pam Anderson and this. It was like a culture. We were becoming a Monster Energy drink as a culture. The X Games were on television because they were so popular. Everything was extreme, right? Your extreme commercials, your extreme this. So it was a good reflection of that. But like everything else, as you know, that dies too. And then they had the steroid trial, and Chris Benoit kills his family, and Eddie Guerrero dies, and it's just all this chaos is created. So like it's really interesting the way that ebbs and flows, that business. And now it seems like it's huge again, but it's
Yeah.
really not, right? Like it's really not, but it seems like it's
It
huge again.
seems like it is because I had no idea that Peacock even streamed. I thought it was like a
They
pay per
bought the
view
channel.
still.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, they bought the channel. Yeah.
And I love, like the dark side of the ring
Oh,
stuff.
everybody loves it. Yeah. People watch that don't watch wrestling. I mean,
Well,
it's just they're
I
fascinated with it.
yeah, because like if I see something on Adrian Adonis, I'm like, okay, I remember that this person. I don't remember
Yeah.
like the Von Erichs. I don't remember, like, to me, I was such a WWF snob that anything else just seemed like to
Right.
me WCW. I'm like, this seems like fucking off brand type
That
shit.
was Southern for us, right? Yeah. That was like a
Yeah,
Carolinas
yeah, I was
thing,
just
and you
like
had
I
that
was yeah,
cable.
yeah. To
Yeah.
me, I'm like, I want to
Oh,
see,
I would have loved, I'll tell you, I would have loved to have been a fly on the wall for you at the Rumble a couple weeks ago. That would
yeah.
have been amazing.
Well, I mean, yeah, I was just watching and listening, and it was fun, man. To me, like, the hang is everything, and those guys are
Oh, I love
really,
all those guys.
yeah, those guys are
Yeah.
a fun hang, and they love wrestling. So to me, it was just like, yeah, let me just try. Every now and then, you got to try something different. So it's like, all right, cool. Like, I'll just go do this. So
Yeah, yeah. Like for me, it's hard because I don't really watch the shows anymore. I'll probably watch a little bit tonight because something might happen on a different show tonight, and then it's like WrestleMania. So maybe more than likely I'll probably be on the soup. I haven't been asked, but I feel like I could go on if they wanted me to. So and that's a fun thing for me to do. it's different now that I don't have that podcast, and we've transitioned our
Yeah,
show
I
to
was going to
just
ask
talking
you.
about movies.
So I was going to ask you because so Break the Apocalypse turned into Spitball Media. I
Mhm.
never really understood why. I did listen to the last episode because I knew we were going to have a conversation. I love the '90s talk, and
Mm.
shout out to Shaheen.
Shaheen and Brian, you met them both. Yeah,
Of
Bisha, Brian, and
course.
Shaheen.
So I love that he mentioned the dentist 1 and 2
He
because
loves the dentist. He
yo,
loves the fucking dentist.
me too. I fucking loved it.
Loves it.
So that's why I wanted Brian Usna on our podcast because he directed those movies. But
Oh, wow.
yeah. So it was like a big deal for me. But before we get into that, just tell me like so what brought about that change?
So it felt like when we started the show, we were fortunate because we had built-in audiences from the wrestling stuff we all did, but we were never talking about wrestling. We still don't generally. So, but one of the things we have in common the most is our love for the movies and like how much movies have meant to us in our life. And because we were dealing with school shootings and bombings and fucking wars and all sorts of stuff, like Shaheen basically just came to me and said, "Listen, dude, I can't do this shit anymore. Why can't we just talk about movies? You and I go to movies every week. Like we're constantly going to movies. B show's constantly watching movies. We know a lot about movies. Half the audience loves movies. I feel like we kind of suck the air out of the room. It's not really so much fun anymore as it is just commenting on the weekly awful thing that happened in the world."
You're right.
And
I'm sorry to cut you off because I remember he was leaving the show, right?
yeah, well, B show had left because he got too busy with like family and stuff. But
Okay,
then
that's what
Shaheen
it
was
was.
like,
That's what it was.
yeah. But then Shaheen was like privately, he was like, "Listen, I don't want to. Well, we know so much about movies, and like it's the thing. It's the one thing that's constant in our lives." And he's like, "Why can't we just focus on that?" And I was like, "Yeah." Brian was like, "Fuck yeah." And so we just decided, well, let's the core audience people were on board with it because most of them they loved the movie talk we always did. So we just decided we're just going to talk about entertainment news. The Patreon is going to be like an extension. Everybody who joins the Patreon after the show ends, they get a private like half hour of more movie talk of exclusive content. And now we have like over 1,000 hours of content there. I
Awesome.
honestly, I think we've maintained like 90% of our retention of Patreon, which is fucking as small as the show is.
Yeah.
The core people go nowhere, and they constantly are involved in the show, sending recommendations. We're talking with them and stuff like that. So our show is very tiny in terms of reach compared to what we were all used to talking about wrestling. But our enjoyment of like, I can't wait to talk about fucking, the Academy Awards next week, like last week, or like we have all these things like, holy shit, we all watched Curb. We're going to talk about Curb this week and
Oh
talk
yeah.
about what we thought about Curb. It's
It's
so
fun.
fun,
Yeah.
dude, right? Like, isn't that like, and there's no politics to it. And that was the other thing too, is just there's no politics to it. It's
So
just
what
Curb, what do we think of Curb? That's in 20 minutes on that.
and with us, that's what it was, man. Same for us. Like I just I could talk politics or whatever unfun stuff like the
Unfun.
off the podcast because it's just like it just didn't seem like it's something we ever wanted to do. To us, it was like music, movies, pop culture. That's it.
There
That's
you
all.
go.
That's
Yeah.
all we wanted to do because that's normally what we talk about anyway. So we'll just like record the conversations, and yeah, like
Mhm.
after a while, it's just like it probably isn't fun, but it's more fun to talk about the dentist for sure.
Well, yeah, where can you hear people talk about, 3 o'clock high and the dentist
Oh,
and celebrity babes and the slime bolorama? Like,
yeah,
I want to hear that. I want to
yeah.
talk about that shit. Like, I think this week we'll talk about Drake's cock for probably 10 or 15 minutes. Like a lot of people will talk about Drake's penis, but it's like we keep it moving. It's like, that sounds like it'll be a
That's a real
Patreon
thing.
thing. Well, yeah, like I guess there's because Louis C.K. he got caught like jerking off or something, and like it was all over the internet. And then Louis C.K. said, "So it's okay for Drake, but not me." And I thought that was the tweet of the century, like as a
Oh,
joke. Yeah, this apparently just happened in the last 24 hours, but
yeah,
I
because
don't
I
know that we're going to talk about it.
okay, yeah, because I read a friend of mine she made some sort of status, and I was just like, wait, is that like I was gonna Google it, but I was like, I'm not. I'll
Yeah,
wait.
I didn't Google it. I just saw the people talking about it, and then I saw the Louis C.K. post, and I thought that was fucking hilarious. So, like whether it's we don't run trailers on it because of YouTube, because they'll just fucking take the show down. It's annoying. Regardless of how small it is, it's just very annoying to put that work in and have them take it away. It just fucking sucks.
Oh
So we
yeah,
do
yeah, they
trailers on
do.
YouTube.
Yeah, yeah, they
Yeah, they
do.
take it away. Like I know somebody who had got a YouTube strike for their own music, for their fucking music.
Yeah. So same thing. Yeah, that's really fucking annoying
How
because
crazy is this?
that's happened to me. It used to happen
Oh
on
my God.
Facebook, but I think they fixed it somewhat. But like you would
Mhm.
post stuff, or even like on TikTok, which I'm barely on, but I'm like, whatever, I'll just keep posting shit.
Well, you have a
Um,
band. You kind of have to. You're in a
no, no,
band.
but yeah, even if I post my own fucking shit, like it'll be
Doesn't
like,
matter.
yeah, it's like, oh, it could be like 30, 40 seconds, nothing longer than that. And it's like,
Hmm.
yeah,
Yeah. And a trailer and a good like red band trailer, 2 minute trailer, you're fucked, right? Like, and so we do it, we push that all into the Patreon. And then, for like it's $5 a month, people have like like 1,000 hours of exclusive content. You know what I mean? And a lot of people, I learned this from Soup, that listen to podcasts are like working class people who drive an hour and a half to a job, people who can listen to it on the job, people who have a long commute home, and they'll send you shit, be like, take a picture, be like, thank God for like, Wrestling Soup on my 2.5 hour drive home. You guys had a fucking long episode. And that's the thing I love about podcasts, especially when I was exercising like the world was ending. I was listening to three, almost like maybe three or four, maybe 4 or 5 different full shows a week of other people's stuff, because I was out there like every day, like, and I didn't want to listen to music. And I was listening to podcasts. And now it's so crazy because all of the podcasts that I listen to are heavy on like Gaza. And I'm just like, I don't want to, I'm not listening to this. I don't want this. I'm trying to get away from this, like to talk about
yeah. The
whether it's,
only
I went from Afghanistan to the Middle East. And I'm like, I would rather talk about, a poultrygeist, on a
yo,
podcast.
I love poultry guys, but I do like I'll listen to Breaking Points every day. So Breaking Points is
Yeah.
is, is like a news show.
You and a lot of people we know. A lot,
Yeah.
that's their shows.
So
Breaking Point.
like
I like the fifth column. I think the fifth column is probably more our speed, because
okay,
those guys are pretty great.
I gotta check that out. I haven't heard so.
Yeah.
But your last episode on Spitball Media, I wanted to throw some titles in because
Okay.
you guys were talking about like some maybe underrated movies of the
Yeah, we were
'90s.
talking about movies that most people don't consider great, but we think are great.
Yeah, yeah. All right,
That's
so
what it was. It was
yeah,
yeah, like
so
The Dentist.
The Dentist was on my list 100%. When you talk about practical effects, like this movie, teeth make everyone squirm. It's either fingernails or teeth, or like, that scene in Misery with the
Oh,
sledgehammer. But
my God.
so the sledgehammer is cringe inducing, even if you see the GIF online. The Dentist is
Mm.
just like unbelievably brutal. Shout out to Corbin Burnson and
Yeah.
LA
That
Law.
was a wild departure for him. Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
that was the thing. Like, Shaw didn't even know he was like a TV star, and like Bisha remembered him from Major League. And I'm
Yeah.
like, this motherfucker was on a huge show. He was the heartthrob on
Yeah.
fucking LA Law.
with
He
with
was like the heavy
with Larry
heartthrob
Drake. Yeah.
with Larry Drake, which I forgot, and Susan Day and Mark Harry Hamlin. That was the. My dad used to watch the show. Jimmy Smits, Brooklyn.
Jimmy
Shout out to Jimmy
Smits.
Smits,
Yeah, for sure.
Brooklyn guy. Love
Hell
Jimmy
yeah.
Smits. My dad
Uh
used to watch that show.
so yeah, I used to watch it too. So that's on there. The movie Popcorn is really underappreciated, and I feel like recently, like we finally got like a copy of it. Because I know, probably like whenever you get this like random ass titles like this on streaming sites, is because like Vinegar and Syndrome, or like some place like did like
Yeah.
a re-release finally. So Popcorn, which I don't know if you're familiar with.
I
Um,
see the graphic in my head of the girl with her head tilted with the popcorn thing on the
Yeah,
box.
yeah.
Right?
It to me
Yeah,
it was like one of the first
I've seen it.
who done it movies, horror movies from that era. But then it just turns into like some like bizarro thing, and it's just so entertaining. And my last one I'm gonna throw in Maniac Cop 2, which is like
Oh, good one.
you would never think
I love that movie.
you would never think, but it's like Robert Davi, Bruce Campbell, and it's just like an action movie. It's basically like the movie Cobra, but with like Maniac Cop. So it's very good. Just wanted to
Well, I don't know if I told you this previously, but I saw 3 O'clock High in theaters when it came out. I saw Cobra in
Yeah, me too.
theaters when it came out. I've seen Frankenhooker multiple times when it came out at the Waverly in the Village. Like I was able to experience a lot of these. I saw Henry when it came out at the
Wow.
Waverly when
Okay.
it came out. Like that's just scratching the surface. Like Basket Case 2. I saw Kids in the Hall Brain Candy, and like everybody walked out like of the theater because they thought it was so terrible. I saw Strange Brew in a movie theater in 1985. So I remember a lot of these as movies, but I brought up The Faculty because I feel like that movie has been rediscovered by people a lot younger than us as being such a cool, edgy '90s weirdo movie, almost like a River's Edge to them in a weird way. Because the
Absolutely.
cast is so phenomenal. Like you couldn't get that cast in a movie today, honestly.
Like 10 legitimate stars.
Stars,
Like
stars.
stars, like people that went on
Yeah,
to like just do fucking like you're like, oh yeah, these are like stars, you know. And
yeah,
and
they're
and
yeah, and it was a Robert Rodriguez movie when he was still hot shit, which is cool.
I love. Did you watch Hypnotic, the movie he made with Ben Affleck last year?
Yeah, I watched it because you told me, and I didn't like the heavy guy in it. I've seen him in a lot of stuff, and I thought he wasn't very good. I love Affleck. I think Affleck's great. I feel like Affleck gets a bad rap. I'll be honest with you. I
I
think
feel
Affleck's a talented guy.
I feel too like he does like whenever I mentioned, I don't know what movies you had at the top of your list last year, but like
Mm.
Hypnotic was like definitely in my top 10, but like everyone bashed it because of their hatred of Ben Affleck, which is weird. I'm thinking
Weird.
like, yeah, I'm like, who cares? Like, I don't know. Is he that bad? Like, like it's like him and he borrowed $20 from you or something and it never paid you. Like,
Well, I think it's easy to. Affleck's a celebrity. It's kind of easy to dislike, right? There's certain celebrities you could find a reason to dislike him. I like him quite a bit. Me and my brother Mike thought he kind of got fucked with the Batman stuff. I thought he did a very good job. I thought he was a phenomenal Bruce Wayne looking guy, and he got jacked up like a motherfucker. He's a cool dude. Like he wears fucking like Boston hardcore propaganda t-shirts all the time. All he does is wear these Boston hardcore propaganda like constantly, and like he's helped out a lot of people. I just think we're at a place now where the baggage of a movie star, unlike when we were growing up or when we were younger, is so in your face that people just can't get past that and let you just live like a motherfucker. Like if Robert Downey Jr. got arrested today for all the things he got arrested for when we were growing up that people have forgotten about, he'd be finished, right? People would be like, fuck that junkie, fuck that, blah, blah. Like there's no empathy for anybody who's doing better than you anymore. And I get it. Hollywood is a poisonous, vacuous place, but Affleck's been around our whole like adult lives. Like he's not going
yeah,
anywhere. He's still
I,
gonna be here, right?
to me, I could watch, I could watch pretty much, anyone. If Donald Trump played Henry Hill, I could watch Goodfellas. You know what I mean? Like,
Did you see The Accountant with Netflix?
yeah, I thought that was okay. I didn't love
I
it, but
like
I thought
that
it was good.
movie.
Yeah.
They're making a sequel. I really liked it. I thought it was an understated movie. Like
I
like
saw that
like
in
oh, is it
theaters. Yeah, I went to the theaters to watch it.
really?
Yeah.
Yeah, and there's the guy who does the song at the end to leave someone behind. I can't believe I'm forgetting his name because he almost played my house. He was going to perform at my house. He's lives up here. He's like a folk singer. Oh, I can't believe I'm forgetting his name. He's awesome. You've heard of him if I said his name. He's got a very deep voice. He did a Sade cover that went viral
Oh wow.
of
Okay.
By Your Side.
Okay. I love that song.
Well, he did a live version. He has a very deep voice. I don't know if you remember the movie, but it was the end credits song. And he's like a folk singer who lives in upstate New York who will play your house like for a very little amount of money. He'll literally play your house.
Yeah.
And then COVID happened. He was going to play my birthday, and then COVID happened. So I like that movie. They're making a sequel. They just announced it last week. I think The Accountant 2 is coming.
My girlfriend looked into getting the Smiths tribute band to play my birthday like 2 years ago. And I was like,
Oh.
are you fucking crazy? How much would that have been? Like for sure.
Yeah. Well, this wasn't cheap, but I was going to do it. And then because he's local and I like a lot of his songs. My brother Mike actually got me into him. And then I heard the song in The Accountants. And I was like, I bet you Affleck put this guy in the fucking movie because that seems like an Affleck move. I mean,
Yeah.
he helps Slain, the rapper Slain.
Absolutely. Yeah.
He's a huge part in that guy's success. Like I think I've heard him say that at one point or another.
I mean, the town, yeah, for sure. Like yeah, and Slain, super. I mean, I love his earlier stuff. Like when I first heard Slain, I was like, yo, this guy's flow is crazy. Like Rich Man, Poor Man was one of my favorite Slain songs when he was still doing like purely ignorant music, which I love for sure.
Well, Affleck got him
The town.
no, prior to the town. That's his second Affleck movie. Affleck, I think I heard him tell this
Oh,
story on a podcast.
Gone Girl?
Gone, Baby, Gone.
Gone Baby
Affleck
Gone. That's
directed
it.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
his brother's the star.
Yeah.
He had a pretty big role in that, and he had an even bigger role in the town.
Yeah.
And I think if I'm remembering this right, I apologies if I don't remember this correctly, but I heard him talk about this on a hardcore podcast. Was that Affleck, I think, got a hold of his mixtapes or like his music and reached out to him. And that's literally how that came to be. And they, became very, friendly, and he worked with them and stuff like that. So I'm just saying, like, I like Affleck. Matt Damon, I don't think is that great, but he's
so
okay.
Slain was in a movie called Girl House. That was the first time I saw him in a movie, and it was like just a slasher movie. He was
Get out of here.
Yeah.
Wow.
So
I didn't know that.
Before any of that, yeah, it wasn't very good. But I mean, it's still like, I mean, it's it was like still fun to watch. Yeah, I'll
but
send you.
I mean, look, he's worked with Academy Award winners and nominees. I mean, like, Jesus Christ, that's how many people can say that who are making like, underground hip hop tapes, like, that they get to work with Academy Award people. It's awesome. And it's a testament to him too, being a talented guy.
Oh, for sure. And he's still like, so Slain still works, and I think he's like doing like a lot, like in Massachusetts, like drug recovery stuff, because he's got like a whole bunch of years sober. So he works in like a center. Like he's always posting about this other shit. Because I have like, man, I've been sober since '98. So like, whenever I see that,
have you been that long? My goodness! Yeah. Wow, that's a long time, dude.
Heroin is a hell of a
half your life, right? That's half your life, right?
Yeah, from like 13 to 20, I was like, I got it out of my system early. All the jails, the rehabs, the detoxes, the ODs. By like
dude.
By like 2000, I was like, all right, I think I'm good.
Yeah, you could have been a character on The Wire at that point. Like, you know what I mean? You could have done
totally, absolutely.
You could have worked with Bubs on The Wire.
Yeah. I mean, definitely a different demographic as far, I was more of into selling than I was whatever Bubs was doing. But shout out to him and Omar. But so wrapping up real quick, I did want to ask you about your reconnection with hardcore music and maybe like your hardcore roots that I know you wanted to touch on. So.
Yeah, so like when I moved up here, there was a lot of opportunities for like to see bands that I hadn't seen in a long time, and we had a lot of friends up here, as we do in the hardcore scene, pretty much all over the fucking country, but especially up here. Like, it was always, my family was always treated very good up here. I was always treated very good up here, and I continue to be treated good up here. So I don't go to shows that often. I don't want to paint myself with that brush, but because also my hearing is really bad, so I have to be conscious of that. So, and I don't like this. It's not fun to go to a hardcore show with earplugs. This is really not that fun. But I started like kind of rediscovering even internally, like Leeway and Killing Time and like, Youth of Today and like Gorilla Biscuits, like just listening to them like while exercising and like running and stuff like that and doing shit around the house. And again, I don't go to shows that often. But I had done the Joe Hardcore out in Philly, who books This Is Hardcore.
I heard that episode.
Podcast too.
I heard.
Yeah, he asked me to come on, so I did that episode, and I talked about Lament, which no one really ever talks about.
Wait, let me cut you off. Let me cut you off real quick, and then we'll go back to that. So during this wrestling Royal Rumble thing, I was sitting next to Ron and Tom, and for some reason, your brother Mike came up, and then they brought you up, and they were like, man, that band Lament was so good. They were talking about how good Lament was. I was like, oh yeah.
Well, well, I'll tell you something, and this might not be true in other types of music, but it's certainly true in hardcore. What me and my brother Mike have discovered now that he's in his 50s, like me, is that there's something to be said for people. As much as we hated the people who left for leaving or stopping to play, there's something to be said for doing that, because staying too long, and unfortunately, this is just a part of life. When you stay around too long, it's kind of not as interesting to people anymore, right? And I'm wearing a Judge T-shirt that I bought at the Judge reunion at This Is Hardcore like 15 years ago. Um, and we're seeing this. We're seeing Gorilla Biscuits play 2 or 3 shows a year, and they're sold out, and it's great, and everyone loves it. They don't make a record. They're not making a record. Quicksand, different story, not hardcore, but you get the idea. Like,
Yeah.
Youth of Today is going to do an album where they just play a show where they just do one album. Like, we're going to do We're Not in This Alone in this city, and we're going to do this album in this city, and people lose their fucking minds. So I talked to Joe Hardcore. I did that episode. We talked about Lament, something I never really get a chance to talk about. And I just felt very like kind of proud that I actually know people like this who have done such wonderful things in that scene that opportunities didn't exist like that for me back then. So the thing that always kind of, comes up with people with Lament is that it's not available anywhere. And like Tom had blessed us on his podcast, which is a very big audience, as you know, with the guy from Drug Church and the other dude.
Yep.
I think their show is enormous. They talked about underappreciated bands, and Tom made a whole point of talking about Lament with these guys. And the Drug Church singer was like, and the other guy, I think from Rev, was like, "Oh yeah, I just bought that 7-inch like last week," and I'm like, "Fuck, like bought the 7-inch?" Like, it's crazy. And people like, I remember Scott from Terra. I was with Joe Affey at Maximum Penalty, and I'm hanging out with him, and he was like, "Did I tell you I have the Lament 7-inch?" And I was like, "How many 7-inches did we sell? Like, this is crazy." Right?
That's great.
So the opportunity to get all that done digitally, driven with the fact that we haven't played a show in like 10 years. We played a handful of shows like in the 2010s, small amount of shows. And then we just didn't play. Like, I think, there was a lot of reasons behind that, but it was never supposed to be some big comeback thing or anything like that. But it was nice to do some of those shows. And, people treat you different when you're not constantly at the dance. People want to dance with you. People want to listen. So, there's no official thing or anything like that, but what I think we're going to try to do at some point this year is get this stuff released digitally at the very least. Now, would I be lying if I said that would just be that and we'll never talk about it again? That's probably not true. I don't know what's going to happen. We haven't discussed it. All of this really revolves around Joe Affey, because all of this exists with him, him and I. But with him, like I wouldn't dream of not doing anything in hardcore without Joe Affey. I just couldn't do it. It wouldn't be worth it to me. And my friendship with him, unlike with other people, has endured decades, and my admiration for him as a person and as a player. And I'll go to my grave thinking he's like just this phenomenally talented guy. So I think we're going to figure out a way to get all of the stuff we've done released digitally. We have a full-length album. We have songs that people never heard before. We have the 7-inch that a lot of people like, which gets a lot of people excited, like to talk about sometimes. I would like to do that. I think it's sad that none of that exists. And our peers have that. All of our peers, with very few exceptions, have that luxury. That's something we would like to do. I think we would like to get it all together and put it out in some capacity. That may or may not happen. But, I feel like for me, I would play a hardcore show with Lament as little or as once, or 3 times and call it a day and be happy to do that. Because that's really like, for me, I don't have those vibes with Lament. I have nothing but a lot of really good things that I remember. And people are so much cooler about it in the hardcore scene. As you know, some of the biggest people walking around the hardcore scene are my age, are my peers. It's not this stigma behind, and look, I don't know that I would want to walk in a bar at 25 and see a bunch of 50-year-olds play rock music. I don't know that I would want to do that. Probably not. But no, I'm serious. Like, I don't think I would like, if but as far as hardcore goes, there's something a little Peter Panish about it that I kind of really like. And unlike a lot of other people, I didn't just hang around at that dance, you know what I mean? And play these awful shows and, sound shitty live. Like, Lament played very infrequently, but a lot of stuff we did was pretty damn cool. And there's very little recollection of this. So, what I would like to do, and I think Joe and I are going to try to figure this out, hopefully this year, is get everything released digitally. And then if anything happens after that, I can tell you it won't be some, big, we're getting the band back together vibe, but to play a high profile hardcore show with Lament for like the first time in like fucking half a century or whatever the fuck. Wow. I that would feel great. And he's musically for me, someone who could get me off a couch anytime. Like
Yeah.
I always feel like, and I'm dead serious. That's just the love I have for that guy. And as a person, like, I have a lot of trust in him as a person. And I don't know what the landscape is for that. I think it would be one of these things, Sam, that you see a lot of people be really excited about it locally and stuff like that. And then like, like everything else, these things peter out. But I didn't have that moment. My brother Mark is having a huge sort of resurgence with Shutdown right now.
Absolutely.
That seems to kind of just happened, but it was planned, for a while. You'll probably be hearing or seeing a lot more of them, in the next year or two. That's for sure. And, I would like to do that. For me, being older and more isolated in my real life brought me back to what that felt like as a teenager, when I had 100 friends, but they were all poison. And I was listening to Agnostic Front, you know what I mean? And the Cro-Mags
Yeah.
and Raw Deal and the Revelation Records groups and Slapshot and all that stuff. So, I love running into hardcore people. You'll see me at a few things here and there, and it's a good feeling. I feel very comfortable in that environment, and my family is treated so fucking good by these people who have, really been in the trenches for that shit. Now I don't have the same relationship with a lot of these people that Mark or Mike has because they were way more successful than me. But that being said, I also know that I've never experienced that kind of relationship playing rock music really with other bands. Very few people have I experienced that with. So for me, I'd like that to be a thing. I don't know that that's going to happen. I think at the very least, digitally will happen. We'll get that figured out and get that online.
That
I
would be
can't say
great.
when that's going to be. It'd be wonderful. I think a lot of people have never heard it or didn't realize how old this was. I mean, the Lament 7-inch came out in 1991, Sam.
Wow.
1991.
91. That's at
Yeah.
least 15 years ago.
Well, it's funny because like it also hasn't had a life on digital, right?
No,
So
yeah, and right now that's important. Like when you put up that Synthetic 16 record on, Spotify, it just or the streaming sites and service, like that's just great, with like, older bands doing that from the hardcore scene. It's just great to have that access because everyone has a phone and sometimes you're sitting on the train or sometimes you're sitting in the car and you're like, hey, I really want to listen to this Outburst CD or like like anything that you could just basically put on Spotify because it is what it is. That's just what it is. You don't have a record player in your fucking car sitting there trying, you just have the access to this stuff. And sometimes people uploaded it to YouTube and it sounds like shit. So this way, at least, you're going to get the best sounding quality that you can from this stuff. And it would be great to see Lament on there. And
I would like that.
Or two, yeah. If you did a show,
and again, I don't know that that's going to happen. I don't want to mislead anybody. There's been no plans. There is talk of trying to figure out to get this done digitally, and I think that's the priority because that also, as you know, that creates the interest, right? You get it done digitally, people go, "Holy shit, maybe you could play something."
Yeah.
I will tell you this: the only time you'll ever see us probably do anything, it would be something supporting, peers, like people that are very close to us or significant people that we care about, and we have a lot of people that were very successful in their endeavors. Joe has been infinitely successful with Maximum Penalty more than anything I've ever done with him. But just to have that maybe digitally and put that out there so that people have access to it. I don't know what younger people are going to think, but it would be cool. I know like Tom would like it.
But how cool, like your brother back to Mike, with Confused. Like look
Confusion,
at that.
That was huge.
I mean, Confusion, like how cool is that story? And I didn't know anything really about them except for what he told me on the podcast. And then I listened to the song that they put out. I guess they released that one song first. And I was like pretty blown away at the time that it was made and what it sounded like, because it's like, this is still fucking brutal. Like it's so
it's very like death metal-y, kind of like it's very heavy metal. Yeah, and Lament was like that too. It's very metalish, so which a lot of the hardcore scene is now. It's not like, stop and go, outburst, killing time vibes, which I love that stuff for sure. That's my shit. But like the really successful bands and some of these like metal core bands, like younger bands, I would love to have it digitally. I love the New York hardcore scene so much. I've no family has benefited more from the New York hardcore scene than my family. Nobody. And there's really not a lot of people that have like these multiple family members in this niche within a niche of music.
Does
You
Joe
know,
does Joe regret not starting a band?
I think Joe should have been like a Reuben Kincaid and just managed everybody.
Yeah,
That would have been even like Kevin. Like Kevin really isn't a hardcore guy, my brother
sure.
Kevin, but
Yeah,
he managed hardcore bands and he put
yeah.
together some pretty significant hardcore shows. And Castle Heights was a hardcore
It
destination.
was. Hey,
Like
hold on, my fucking cat. Fucking like, I want to kill
your
him.
cat's
Hey,
giving us your cat's like the Sandman at the Apollo. Your
get
cat's
the
playing us off.
get the fuck down. He's trying to knock over a plant.
Oh, isn't that the best? Yeah, so like I think that's going to be the focus. Like, we're going to try to figure out how to get some stuff released digitally and see. And let's see, it may or may not happen as far as the show. It's certainly not a plan, but I feel like if you get stuff released digitally and it comes out good, or you get stuff re-released, it's usually accompanied with something.
Yeah,
So I would like to accompany it with something, but it's not going to be some, back of a fucking, abandoned parking lot deal. Like I'm not doing that. You know what I'm saying? Like, and I love people
no,
who do
yeah,
that. That's great. But people my age should, unless,
I
that's
get
an
it.
off night for some people. I can't be doing these like, rough and tumble, shit shows. Like, and
Yo,
I'm not shitting on anybody, dude.
no,
I'm just saying
you're
I can't
right.
do that.
You're right because sometimes I'm not even gonna get too much into details, but yeah, sometimes
Mm,
we stuff flies around to us, and I'm like,
mm.
yeah, that's a young man's game. I'm not. I can't do that.
It
We're
is,
like,
and
I'll,
Sam. That's meant for young people to build their shit. Like
yeah.
that's what that's for.
We already did that, and I'm tired. I'll just sit at home. I don't want to do that at all.
Oh yeah, that's the other thing too. I'll sit at home and watch The Dentist. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And then text you and be like, dude, Dentist too, not bad.
Not
Like,
bad. Yo, so when we talked to Brian Usna, the director, he did Society,
oh, it's fantastic.
he did a bunch of shit. And when he mentioned The Dentist, he said he was going for like a Hitchcock De Palma feel. And I was like, you know what? I was like, God damn it. I'm like, I never would have thought of it like that. But it really did. Like when he described what he was going for, I'm like, you kind of nailed it. And the second movie was good too, but the first one was just great because it was just so, like you're thinking a serial, like like a slasher basically with a dentist, and that's just like,
Mm. I
two.
regret not putting the OG Stepfather in one of those categories.
Yeah.
That was a great fucking movie, man. That was a
So
great movie.
the girl in that movie is the main girl in Popcorn,
Okay.
Jill Sholin. So, but
Oh, is that right? Oh, wow,
yeah.
that's cool.
So in closing, I know you guys talked about some movies. Any recommendations from last year? Like what were some of your favorite movies from last year?
Well, I go to the movies almost every week because
Yeah.
I have a pass, but I haven't been able to this winter. We've just been too busy with real life stuff. But I love The Holdovers so much. I saw
Mm.
that in a giant theater with my youngest daughter, Edie, and we were the only people in the theater. It was a week and a half before Christmas, 2 weeks before Christmas. She just came home from her first college break, and I'm one of these dudes like with my stepdaughters. I like to do things with them, like let's go to the arcade tonight. Let's go see a movie tonight, like with just us, and we'll go hang out. And then it's
I
always
see the pictures and I'm like, this motherfucker,
all the time. Yeah,
you're beaming. Like
yeah, it's the best.
your love for them is like very like you could see it just from like what you write.
Did you
And
see them doing the merch at the show? Did you see them doing the merch?
yeah, I did. Yeah, of course. Yeah,
What a full
absolutely.
circle life that I've had, right?
That's a trip.
So I couldn't believe how good it was. I swear to God, like I love Giamatti anyway, and I love what's his face, the director's films there. I've seen a lot of his movies, but not in theaters necessarily. And when I walked out of the theater, I said to Edie, and I go, I'm calling this right now. That woman, I don't know her name, is going to win an Academy Award. She's going to win a Golden Globe, and he's going to get nominated for Best Actor. The kid, he's going to get nominated for Best Picture. He's going to get nominated for Best Screenplay. He's going to get nominated for Best Director. it's that kind of had that kind of impact on me.
And
I
it
didn't
did.
even, and it did all of that. Divine Joy Brown. If I'm apologies, sorry if I mistake her name. Yeah, brilliant. I mean, this like stands out to me, like, as something so powerful.
On my
Um,
goddamn list, and it hit Peacock, and I just haven't had the chance to basically like just sit down for 2 hours
oh, it's
and
so good.
watch it. I know
Giamatti is. Yeah, he was on Stern today, wasn't he? Giamatti, I heard.
he was this week. Yeah.
Yeah, he is that guy. I mean, you talk about an unlikely star.
Yeah, right.
Honestly,
Absolutely.
he's got
Yeah.
a face like a catcher's mitt. He's got a body like a. He's got a body like a rubber fire hydrant.
Yeah.
And if he was just pig virus, whatever, pig
Yeah.
vomit, whatever, that would be cool, right? He would be cool with that. But he's so. I mean, I remember seeing him in John Adams, and I'm like, this is Paul Giamatti. It's like ridiculous. Like he's an excellent actor.
I
It's
remember
the
seeing
it's,
him and being like, hey Donnie, what does forget about it mean? What does
oh my
forget
god.
it?
Sometimes it's just forget about it.
Yeah.
But I'm just saying, like, and his dad, he's a Brooklyn guy. He was born and raised
Yeah,
in
yeah.
Carroll Gardens, and his dad was the fucking baseball commissioner. He
Amazing.
died. His dad is the reason Pete Rose is not in the Hall of Fame.
Oh wow. I didn't know that.
His father was Bart Giamatti. He was the baseball commissioner. He banned Pete Rose from life. Then he got sick and died while in office, as they say. And every commissioner since then, no one wants to be the one to overturn his dying creed.
Oh, I didn't know the insight to that. I had
That's what
no
it
idea.
is. That's
Wow.
fact. Yeah, that's fact. That's a fact. And Paul Giamatti, again, not the, I'm not trying to be a douche. He's just not a Hollywood looking man. And to see this guy be in this conversation with A-list people, with films like Oppenheimer, which was fantastic. I really loved Killers of the Flower Moon. I don't know what you thought about it. I
So
loved it. I thought it was great.
I saw Oppenheimer. I saw Oppenheimer. It just in retrospect, it probably wasn't for me because there was no time travel, there was no Interstellar, it was like watching a book report, and I get it. I'm just not a big history buff. I didn't watch Killers yet. I heard it's still some people love it, some people hate it.
Yeah.
So
did you see Maestro? Because I just saw that last week. My brother Mike said you need to watch this movie.
Oh, really?
I loved it. I can't believe how much we loved it. Me and my wife stood there immediately. We were like, okay, now it's a different Academy Award season, because now I had no idea this movie was this powerful. Bradley Cooper's great.
What about Poor Things?
I didn't see Poor Things.
So
I don't know why
Poor
I haven't
Things,
seen it.
yeah, to me, like it didn't. I watched it maybe like the first week of 24, so I missed it for my list. But holy shit, like that movie,
she's something though. She's great.
Unfucking like I love The Lobster and Killing of a Sacred Deer, but this movie,
me too, big fan.
This movie in particular is more in line with The Lobster, just the absurdity and surrealism. But it's just it whatever it's going to win, it deserves, because it's unbelievable visual. Like I can't say enough about it, and when you watch it, I you'll probably feel.
Well, I'll tell you. I'll just say this really quick. Me and my daughters were supposed to go see it when they were home from college when it first came out.
That's a weird one to see with your daughter.
Well, let me tell you. Let me stop you right there. So then all of a sudden I'm researching it online, and I'm like, because I forget it's the lobster, dog tooth guy, right? Yeah. I'm not gonna take my kids to see the dog tooth guy movie, but it's Emma Stone. They love Emma Stone. They love her. They love her. So I'm talking to my wife, and I go, listen, I got an awkward situation here. I was like, so I want to see this movie. The girls want to see it. I was like, Emma Stone is like a fucking whore in this movie, banging everybody with full nudes. And she's like, yeah, go see something else. So we went and saw the space station movie. Did you hear about it?
I wanted to watch that. Yeah, I didn't watch it.
Cool movie. It's a little understated film. So we went and saw that instead and I never told the kids why we switched movies. I just couldn't bring myself to say, listen, Emma Stone is like doing full nudes, fucking like people as a dead body in this movie. I don't really want to watch that with you.
Yeah.
Can we go see the space station movie where they try to kill each other?
My friend Rick, shout out to Rick. We were texting each other, and he lives by that theater in New Jersey that's been open for 92 years. He's like, oh, they're closing it in like Ridgewood, New Jersey. And he's like, I'm going to go see Poor Things. He's like, I'm going to take my daughter and her boyfriend. I wasn't thinking
Oh
anything
God,
when
I'm so
I
glad I
was
do this.
I wasn't thinking anything when he told me this. I was like, oh my God, it's so good. It's such a great movie. You're gonna love it. And then the next day he's like, yo, he's like, man, was that really uncomfortable? And I was like, oh my God, you said your daughter and her boyfriend. Oh my God, that must have been
Yeah,
so.
it's
He's like, it was very uncomfortable.
yeah, and it's like I don't need that in my, like we saw the Lego movie together. Like I don't need to see this.
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
we go to Marvel movies together.
yeah.
Like I'm not taking them to see that. So I'm glad I didn't do it. But the space state, the ISS, whatever it's called, weird movie, weird little artsy, tense, dude. Like I got to be honest with you, I think you really like that film. It is a tense. It's uncomfortable, man. Like you're like, oh, looking around, like what the fuck are they gonna do? You know the premise, right?
Yeah, I do know the premise. I wanted to watch it. Yeah. Yeah. It's
Phenomenal. I think it might be on a list for people next year because it's it's an understated film, but for the budget they probably had, the shit looks good. The acting is very good. I think the guy Messina is his last name. I forget his first name. He's a guy's been a lot of stuff, but it's the girl who won the Academy Award for West Side Story, played Maria, is the lead in it. She's good. She's very good actually. And then there's like it's such a cool, it's an interesting concept. There's 8 speaking parts in this whole fucking movie, dude. I mean, 8 speaking parts? You don't see that often.
I love uncomfortable. I really do.
Oh, then you need to make this a priority. I
Uh
will say this before we wrap up. I'm a little disappointed in like there hasn't really been a strong horror movie. I recently watched on Shudder that Heather Graham movie. I did not like it.
I
Um,
didn't like I like Joe Lynch. I like his
yeah, I
movies.
didn't like it.
I love Heather Graham and I love
Me
Barbara
too.
Crampton. And I was like,
Yeah,
oh,
Crampton was great.
this is gonna be really cool. And
Mm,
I watched it even before, like when it hit VOD, I was like, I gotta rent this. And I
yeah,
watched it and I was like,
didn't like it.
I don't like this at all. And I felt bad. I never even said anything about it because I didn't want to knock
Yeah.
it. But
Yeah, me
yeah,
neither, but I didn't enjoy it. And
yeah.
Destroy All Neighbors, I thought was okay.
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 Yeah,
That was it. That's
it
all
was
I would say about it.
it was like
It's okay.
okay, like yeah, I didn't really think anything of it. Like it was just a fun watch. Like
Yeah, it was funny. It was like it's one joke for like 95 minutes, right?
it was
But I
one
like the
it was one joke.
I like the prog rock element. I didn't know that actually was a running joke in there, prog rock. So that was kind of fucking funny, wasn't
So
it? I mean, like,
that was the appeal for me. That was the appeal
mm,
to because of that.
mm.
There was one movie that was like there was 2 movies that were super uncomfortable that are currently up on Shutter AMC Plus. Speak No Evil.
Oh, we did a whole show about that.
I
My
mean,
God.
wow, right? Oh my, I tell people, I'm like, yeah, it's like there's nothing really to it, kind of, but like once it starts
Yeah.
unraveling itself and you start seeing
Oh
what's
my
going,
God.
but by the
Oh my
time you get
God.
to the end, you're just like, you're so
Yeah.
angry. You're like, you want to beat the TV.
Yeah, it gave me actually Martyrs kind of vibes, like after watching Martyrs for the
Yeah.
first time, like, ooh,
Yeah,
like,
it's
yeah.
just like because I understand anyone watching it being like that bored the shit out of me, but
Mhm.
you have to really just watch it and like
Yeah.
watch these people. They're doing a remake to it from
It's
Blumhouse, and
already shot. It's already shot.
I
Yeah.
I'll watch it,
Ugh.
but yeah, exactly. And then the last thing I will say is Birth Rebirth. Did you watch that?
My brother Mike keeps telling me you have to watch it. You
You
have to watch it, and
have
I
to
haven't
watch
watched it.
it. It's
You're the only
very
2 people I know who've seen it, like
yeah,
that talk about it like at that level. Did you
great.
see Godzilla?
I'm not a Godzilla guy, but I'll tell you this: I've not one negative thing
Not a single.
out of the
Negative.
20 people that I know that have seen it. Even the black and white version, everyone's like,
Mhm.
"Yo, it was so good."
It's brilliant. It's brilliant. If there was no Godzilla in it, it would be a brilliant drama.
I heard
I'm
that
dead ass
too.
serious.
Yeah, I heard that too. I heard that you could
It
take
is.
Godzilla.
You could take Godzilla. It just happens to have a Godzilla in it. Um, that movie deserves. When you see it, you're gonna be like, "Yep, I get the hype." That was one of the things I saw it, and I had such a real reaction to see. I didn't see it in IMAX, which I regret so much. But I had there was a guy sitting next to me with his like 10 or 11-year-old son, and the kid was reacting like the way we would watching a rubber Godzilla, like like oh, like reacting like a 10-year-old boy. And the dad, you just felt like there was mostly older men, single men in this movie, like because they had no one to see it with. And then like I don't recall a lot of people clapping at horror movies when they end. People were clapping like, yeah, like, oh my God. Like people loved it, you know, and
I
I
that is
was
that
so
is
taken by it.
that's the beauty of a good audience when you watch a movie. That is still like the magic. There are times, when we watch Thanksgiving,
Mm.
which I loved. I saw it
I
twice.
loved it. It's fun. Yeah.
When I watched it, there was like just this row of people in front of us that just like, I'm like, I want to fight, like line you guys up 1 through 7, that were just annoying with the phone and the talk. I'm like,
Mm.
yo, oh my God.
Yeah, it's
So,
annoying.
so that can ruin, but like when you get like a really good audience for like a movie like that, like we had a great audience for Terrifier 2, where
Yeah, we did too.
everyone just knew, and like it was just like, oh
Oh
my
yeah.
God, it was just great.
Yeah.
That's still the beauty of going to a theater, which I love. Like you, I try to
Yeah,
go
I love it.
as much as possible. But yo, we could do this forever, and I
I
actually have
know, brother.
I have to go, but it was fun. I'm glad we could do it, and we could do it whenever you want to. And man, awesome.
Yeah, thank you so much. And people check out Spitball Media podcast. You know,
Yeah,
we do these every week. We do these conversations.
I'm gonna put the links up for everything. I'll probably put this out Monday because I have an episode for Friday. And tell Shaheen, like, yeah, the dentist, man. I love that he pulled that, and I love that I think B Show might have done Demon Night, if I remember, which I thought was great.
Yeah, I'll definitely send them your love, man, and keep putting out the hits, buddy. You know, my family's a big fan.
Yeah, I'm a big fan
You
of
know it.
you
They
know,
are.
I'm a
My
big
family's a
fan of
big
the
fan.
family too. So,
Yeah.
John, we'll talk
Yeah. Much love, brother. All right,
later,
bye.
brother.